Hello and welcome back to the News Project Live on GNAT-TV's Facebook page. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director at GNAT-TV's News Project. It's a pleasure to have you with us today on Friday, September 9th. It's the weekend, yay! And it's a beautiful day out there too, so things are looking good. Um, we'll start with mentioning that last night, Thursday, September 8th, VT Digger hosted a debate between the two uh, major party candidates for the U.S. Senate. That would be Peter Welch, the Democrat, who's currently Vermont's lone congressman, who is running for the U.S. Senate seat that's being vacated by retiring Senator Patrick Leahy. And he debated Gerald Malloy, who's the Republican nominee for that post. Um, the pair went back and forth at the Southern Vermont Arts Center for about a little over an hour last night, and uh, took questions from two VT Digger reporters, included things like abortion and inflation, the state of democracy in the country, among several other topics as well. Digger will be hosting a couple of other debates as well between candidates who are running for governor, lieutenant governor, and U.S. Congress. And I'm sure they'll all be as interesting as last night's one. It was quite intriguing to listen to all their answers and comments. Um, anyway, you can read more about the debate and kind of go into it a lot more depth on VT Digger's website. They have a very good, extensive story about it, and interesting to hear. All of a sudden, they were less than 2 months away from the general election, and what these folks are talking about becomes increasingly important. Uh, just a program note or two while we're on that subject. We're also hoping to host a couple of, I guess, discussions is more the accurate way to put it than a debate between some of the same candidates. Haven't quite got them all lined up yet, but we do have the two leading candidates for lieutenant governor, David Zuckerman, the Democrat, and Joe Benning, excuse me, State Senator Joe Benning, who is the Republican nominee. They're going to be coming down to our studio September 19th for a discussion there. Then on turning more locally on September 29th, we are hoping to host another discussion between the two candidates who are running in the Bennington-Rutland 1 district. That's the district that includes Dorset and Danby, Peru, Landgrove, and Mount Tabor. Bill Jotty is the Republican nominee for that district, and he'll be uh, running against Michael Rice, who is a political newcomer. So the two of them are going to be down in our studio, and they'll, go over the issues they see as important and paramount to voters in that district. Then on October 12th, we're looking forward to having the two incumbent candidates who are running for re-election in the Bennington 4 district. That's the district that includes Manchester, Arlington, Sandgate, and a part of Sunderland, Seth Bongartz and Kathleen James, and their Republican challenger, Joe Jervis. The three of them will be in our studio to, again, go through some of the issues and, comment on what they think is important and why voters should vote for them. Uh, they'll just be, right now, we're planning them as just in studio affairs that you can watch later on our channels or on our website. But if you have a question you'd like to have one of the candidates respond to, or all three of them, or all two, or whatever it winds up being, you can send them to me, Andrew at GNAT-TV.org. If you'll want to email a question or two, we'll try to work them in. No guarantees, but if you do have one that you think you'd like to hear them speak to, why, fire away on the old email. So we'll leave it there for now on the political front. Uh, and just note also, as we go down through some of the leading stories, that the Manchester Journal has a couple of really interesting stories in their issue this week. One of them is that at least one area of business is hoping to obtain a permit to sell legal cannabis, recreational cannabis, when that becomes possible to do starting October 1st. That would be the Aunt Bonnie's dispensary. It's located on Depot Street, up close to the roundabout. They currently sell CBD products like hemp oil and gummies, but the owner of Aunt Bonnie's is hoping to expand their product line to include legal cannabis, recreational cannabis, and went before the town's development review board earlier this week to seek a permit for that. The board will mull that over. They have, I think, 45 days to rule on whether or not they want to approve that permit application. And then from there, it goes on to the State Cannabis Control Board, which has the final say on whether or not such a permit would be offered. So, just interesting to note that that's one change that may be coming to downtown Manchester in the not too distant future, but nothing that's going to happen immediately. Uh, Also, the Manchester Community Library welcomed its new executive director, Ed Surgeon, to a meet and greet on Wednesday afternoon, an opportunity for folks in town to kind of meet Ed and learn a little bit about what his thoughts are on the library and where they should be going. We were able to do a short interview with Mr. Surgeon before the event, which we included into a little news segment, which will be posted probably early next week on our website, and also will be available on our TV channels. Uh, and Otherwise, a pleasant little gathering. The library's trustees had appointed him back in July, and he has been working at the library now for a couple of weeks, I think 3 or 4 weeks. And Mr. Surgeon's background is kind of varied, very interesting, but his previous job was at the Frederick Gunn School in Washington, Connecticut, where he was the library director and the educational technology director there. So be interested to see where the library goes forward from here. The journal also has stories on the sewer line that's been proposed for Main Street that would run up basically from Cemetery Avenue, from the library, basically, on up to the driveway leading into Hunter Park. That proposal, however, didn't score highly enough when the state reviewed it, and so some of the state funding which they were anticipating for that isn't going to be available. So it's a new proposal has surfaced to scale it back a little bit, cut the length of it back about 500 feet or so, and shorten it up a little bit and come up with some other funding sources. But the state has also encouraged them to reapply for more state money. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. It's certainly, we've all learned a lot recently about how important water and sewer lines are, that kind of infrastructure are to housing development, which, as we all know by now, is a very critical need in the area, as it is elsewhere around the state. And we will be certainly following this one uh, very closely as we go forward. The new boundary line, I should say, would be around the Vermont Country Store offices there, rather than Hunter Park Road, leading into Hunter Park and the Riley Rink. Um, and the financing plan has not been approved yet, but it has been under discussion. And That might include floating a bond for about $500,000 next spring. Well, we'll see how it goes from there. The um, the idea would be to try and get it done before the winter, uh, which might be very tight, but apparently is possible, according to some of the folks who are working on it. So, again, we'll be watching that closely. Related to that, sort of, kind of, is the parking lot behind Walgreens and next to the playing field there at the Manchester Elementary Middle School. People who park there for one reason or another know that it is, shall we say, a little on the worn outside. A couple of nasty little potholes and whatnot, and also has a tendency to not drain very well, has some storm water lingering around longer than might be considered normal. But it's a potential 60 space parking area that a lot of other businesses along Main Street in Manchester would love to have available for customers and for their employees to park as well. So a plan has been brought up now where the owner of the parking lot and the town of Manchester, who well the two entities are co-owners, uh, that's been brokered by Bill Drunzik, an area entrepreneur and well-known developer, sort of facilitated a plan to bring the two sides together, and so there's now some conversation underway about that. Um, Nothing done yet, and nothing, no deal signed or anything yet. But at least there's a conversation happening where there really wasn't before. And as anyone who's ever, as I said, driven through there, well knows, it could certainly use a little love. That's for sure. Otherwise, looking forward to the weekend. The Maple Leaf Half Marathon will be happening on Saturday. It will start at 8 a.m. Most of us are pretty familiar now with the course of the race. It starts at the Rec Park in Manchester and comes through town and then up to the village and then back out the West Road and meanders around along North Road and quite a hilly little stretch there. Anyway, really fun event, and like I said, that'll be starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So if you're driving around through that area, just be aware you might have to slow down or watch out for the runners there. Next week, next Saturday and Sunday, that would be September 17th and 18th. The United Counseling Service is holding its very famous barn sale up at Riley Rink. Um, Money is donated to various area charities. One of the state's best tag sales, as they like to say. So you might want to mark your calendar for that one too. And finally, it's not really local news, and it's not really news either at this point, because I'm quite sure all of you have heard about it by now. But as you probably all know, yesterday on Thursday, September 9th, Queen Elizabeth II of Great Britain and the United Kingdom passed away. She was 96 years old. She had been the Queen of England for 70 years, which is a record. No monarch in British history served that long. I think the nearest one was 63 years for Queen Victoria. Um, what can I say? It brings out the history nerd in me. And now Great Britain, which is going through a bit of a turbulent patch between having a new prime minister and a lot of concerns about inflation and heating prices, basically growing out of the war in Ukraine, uh, now has lost the individual who, for many people, represented kind of stability and continuity and predictability, and that will, of course, be marked by I'm sure, a very impressive ceremony when she is laid to rest in, I think, 8 or 9 days from now. That, of course, means that her son, Prince Charles, is now King Charles III, to be precise, and his wife, Camilla, will be known as the Queen Consort. So that made me think, who is Charles II? Since we have a new Charles now, Charles III, he'll be. You have to go back a long way to the 17th century, to be exact, when Charles II was the reigning monarch in England. He had a very adventurous life. He was the oldest surviving son of Charles I, and was named King of Scotland when his father passed away in 1649. He became King of Scotland, but at that time, England had entered into a period where a parliament was taking over and had basically said to the monarchy, well, we don't really need you anymore. And this is a time when Oliver Cromwell was basically creating the first English Commonwealth, and the country became basically a de facto republic back in the 1650s. So Charles II, or Charles the First of Scotland, basically was defeated in a battle in 1651. He attempted to regain his throne. He was defeated in that battle, had to flee to mainland Europe. Cromwell basically led England until 1658 when he died. That created another political crisis, leading to the restoration of the monarchy in 1660. And Charles returned from exile, became Charles II, and wound up being King of England until 1685. So, long way between our Charleses there, but that's the background of that one. So, on that note, I will say goodbye for today. Thank you all for being with us, and again, stay tuned to our stations, the 1074, 1084, 1094, and also to our website, GNAT-TV.org. We'll be posting lots of stuff between now and next week. And, well, have a great weekend, everybody. Take care. See you then. All right.